Welcome to the Sam and Joe VA Show, where we teach women just like you how to start and scale a thriving virtual assistant business.
We're your hosts, Sam and Joe, and get ready to have the control, flexibility, and freedom you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 179, Beyond Profit, integrating social impact into your VA business.
We are very excited to welcome onto the podcast David Morrison, CEO of Thankyou Payroll. Thankyou Payroll is a payroll software company and charitable trust here in New Zealand that does business beyond profit. So who better to join us to talk about doing good, giving back while staying profitable? Welcome, David. We're really excited that you're here with us.
Morena to both of you. Really excited to be here.
All right. This topic is something that we haven't talked about much on the podcast before. And we thought by episode 179, it's about time that we actually talk about this, David. So thank you so much for being here. Do you want to give us a bit of background? Like, how did you start with Thankyou Payroll and what brought you into this, wanting to do good in the world?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Thankyou Payroll for almost 2.5 years now. I joined in June of 2021 on the back of, COVID lockdowns. Prior to that, I'd spent 7 of the previous 9 years working for Internet New Zealand, which is a charity specializing in the internet space and looking after all the New Zealand domain names. So I've had my most recent work history has really been working in the charity sector, but often with a bit of a commercial bent. So my role in Internet New Zealand was very much on the more commercial aspects of the operation. And when the role for Thankyou Payroll popped up, I thought a few of those boxes, and I was looking to do something a little bit different, and I was quite keen to test out my CEO training tires and give that a go. So yeah, I joined 2.5 years ago with a whole new leadership team, and we've come on board very much to help the organization grow and mature and move on to its kind of next stage of evolving as a mature business in New Zealand.
Very cool. When Thankyou Payroll talks about doing business that goes beyond profit, like what does that mean for you guys?
Yeah. So for me, it's about kind of 3 different levels. So first and foremost is spent the last couple of years really revamping what it means to work at Thankyou Payroll. So doing good is first and foremost doing good for our team, making sure that we've got a great experience for our employees, that they love coming to work and they want to stay and continue to do good work for us. We've done a lot of work, and we can talk some more about some of the things we've been doing there. But doing good, I think, also is about how you build your business model and embed doing good into it. So, there's lots of organizations which will kind of, to my mind, tack on elements of doing good to their business. So they'll have volunteer days, or go do things in the community, but these are things that often will get trimmed when times get tight. So how do you actually build good into your business model so that regardless of how your business is doing, you're always doing good, and it's not something that you sort of chop away when times are tough. It's something you commit to and you embed into your operations. And that's what we do with our free payroll for charities. So about 13% of our subscription revenue actually goes to services in kind to the charity sector. We have, I think, over 760 charities that run a free payroll through us, that's part of our business model. Our business model pays for that, and it's money that effectively does come off the bottom line, but it's money that helps reduce the operating costs of charities in New Zealand.
That's incredible.
Yeah, pretty proud of that.
Is it something that was like from the beginning when Thankyou Payroll started, before you, obviously, but is that something that it was like the basis of how they were going to run their payroll?
Well, actually, when Hugh started Thankyou Payroll back in 2009 and launched, I think, in 2010, originally it was a free payroll service for everybody. So back in those days, IRD had the subsidy, payday filing subsidy, to encourage businesses to do electronic filing. And Hugh built Thankyou Payroll and the business model around that subsidy. So that enabled us to actually offer a completely free payroll service to any organization in the country. And that built up to several thousand users over a number of years. And then in 2019, that subsidy ceased. So they ran the subsidy for about 10 years. From that point forward, we then had to change our business model. So we went from being entirely free to charging fees to customers, but we retained the free elements to charities from that point.
Well, that must have been quite a pivot to have to happen, a whole new business model at that point with something changing.
Yeah, it's something I've been really conscious of. So I think while we're operating as an entirely free service, within New Zealand, we were kind of seen as there's always a bit of a catch with free products. So I think there might have been some resistance to taking it on. However, moving into 2019 and having to charge fees meant that we were actually now competing head to head with other payroll companies that were charging for their services. And that meant that we also had to evolve our service offerings so that we were offering the same features and services. And so we're on a modernization journey now to bring our payroll product into a sort of a really competitive payroll environment. I think there's over 100 payroll products actually used in the country for a country of our size, which is mind blowing.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot. In terms of the providing the software for free for charities, which is amazing, but it also goes beyond just the tool, just the software, isn't it? Like, I get the impression that you guys you put your money where your mouth is. It's not just, here you go, here's a tool, I'm leaving you to it. Yep. Like, you are there supporting these organizations more than just giving them a tool and letting them get on with it.
Oh, absolutely. I think first and foremost, if you're going to provide a free service, we've been really conscious in not providing a kind of pared back service. All of our customers get the same level of service, regardless of whether you're paying for it or not. So you get access to free phone support, our email support, you get access to all of our help resources. We don't have any limitations to the size of charities that can join us either. So we make it as accessible as possible for charities to fully use, our entire service suite. So there's that component. And then we also do a lot to kind of promote and highlight the work we do with charities. So we pick a charity each month. We showcase them through our socials, through to our customers. And then we also do other initiatives as well internally. Last year, we had a Giving for Good campaign where we gave $500 to every staff member and said, here's $500 to give to a charity. And across our, I think it was about 25 staff then, we gave, a good significant amount of money to a whole range of charities that were, of particular importance to individuals in our team. So beyond our business model, we're also allowing our staff to participate in Giving for Good as well.
That's amazing. So obviously one of the values of Thankyou Payroll, is it literally written in that one of your values is doing good? Like how have you actually, is that on the wall? Like how do you actually bring that into the business and make it part of the business? And what happens in the induction? How do you get people on board with doing good?
Great question. The value side of things is something we've been working on. So we've got some new values that actually have coalesced early this year. So we're in the process of deciding where we're going to put those. I think values need to be lived more than put on walls. So it's very easy to kind of write your values and go, boof, they're on the wall, this is what they are. It's more important to try and find ways to embed those values into your organizational rituals, into your meetings, to the way you operate, into the way in which your leadership team operate in the business. So it's as much about how you act as it is about what you do. So our three values are doing good, for a better future, and with others and for others. So it's really simple. It's, doing good's about good work and good deeds. And within that, it's about doing the right thing. So we kind of break down doing good in a whole bunch of a bit more detail. So within that doing good space is things like, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that we should. So doing good sometimes is about making hard choices. And leading into that hard choices is that kind of for a better future. So trying to think with more of an intergenerational mindset around the decisions we make in the business. So the things that we do, we don't want to be purely focused on, are we going to be able to be profitable in the coming year? It's more about, are we actually contributing to a society that will help humanity stay on this planet? So how do we kind of make decisions that lower our impact on the world around us, but also lift up as many people as possible?
And how do you do that? And then, like, how do you induct people into that? How are you specifically living those values, like in your meetings? What are you actually doing practically that those who are listening could actually think about bringing into their business?
Yeah. We're constantly trialing different things all the time. So one of the things in terms of inducting people, there's an element of self-selection. So people generally are attracted to Thankyou Payroll and apply for jobs because they really resonate with the values that we uphold. And we're really clear about the type of organization we are when we go to market for a role. So people are already very much aligned and, you know, have that kind of ethos of doing good when they join us. So it's not much of a hard sell to sort of talk through our values, and often they very much go, yeah, this is who I am. And part of our recruitment process is very much testing, you know, whether our values very much resonate with those folks. And so it's, yeah, super important. There's lots of other simple things, I think, around doing good. Something I introduced, which has kind of waned a little bit, and I want to kind of re-energize in the coming year. But we started talking about feelings when I first started, and we introduced this really cool deck of cards called the Emotional Culture Deck. Which basically it's a deck of cards. On each card is a feeling, and so you can go through a whole range of different exercises to identify, how do I need to feel in order to be successful at work? How do I not want to feel? And so you can get really specific about, I don't want to feel overwhelmed. I need to feel connected. And so people can actually have very specific words or feelings that they can associate to tangible things and behaviors that they want to do within the business. And so we introduced that about 2 years ago, and then use that to start identifying how a team were feeling at work and what they wanted to feel and not feel. And so because of those feelings being identified at a group level, we were then able to start identifying, well, we need to change how we do our meetings. We need to find ways to be more inclusive. We need to have more connection time. I mean, we've done, because we're an organization that's based across offices in Dunedin and Wellington, we also have some staff working in Auckland as well, fully remotely, and a couple of staff out in the Wairarapa. So we have people distributed everywhere. We're not always in the same room. So we're really conscious about how we try and bring people together virtually. I mean, we do simple things like, you know, run a daily quiz. So we jump online and do the stuff quiz. It's an optional drop in 15 minutes. Everybody is able to go in and say hi, do the quiz, try and get 15 out of 15. Don't always, but it's,
how many times, David, do you get 15 out of 15? We want to know.
Well, more often when I'm not running the quiz.
I've got to ask, David, like this is kind of, you just mentioned that this is just simple stuff to you. This is stuff that just comes naturally to you. But I don't think I'm just kind of like thinking through my past managers and bosses and chief executives that I've worked under, who have all been middle-aged white males, and they haven't ever had this level of kind of emotional intelligence and realizing the importance of all this and talking so openly about feelings. Like, where's this come from in terms of your own personal journey? Have you always just been this guy?
Partly, yes. I think, yeah, gosh, I'll probably make it a bit emotional with it. I think my personal journey, I think being a parent has been a really interesting journey. So I've had two beautiful teenage daughters. They're sort of getting closer to the exiting the house and wanting to go flatting kind of stage in life. But that parenting journey certainly raised, you know, my awareness and my emotional intelligence and my need to be able to communicate. I've often been a guy that doesn't talk a lot at home, but, you know, I need to be able to talk and have to do a lot of listening, you know, in order to be, you know, a good dad to our girls. And there's been kind of, you know, mental health things over the years as well, which have kind of changed my perspective on things and have resulted in me, not hiding things or, you know, being a lot more open about how I feel about things and some of the challenges, you know, we might be going through as parents or as partners. And I've learned more and more over the last probably decade that, talking actually really helps. And about 5-6 years ago now, 5 years, I did IT heavy hitters. I was going through a stage where, I was getting really unhealthy. I think it's quite common in your kind of late 30s into 40s.
Yeah.
I think people do get kind of really into their careers in that stage of life. And I certainly did. And I started not looking after myself and realized that I was probably, drinking a bit much and not exercising enough. And so I did the IT heavy hitters, which was a corporate boxing event. And funds go to Mike King's Key to Life, and really got involved in that, trained for 14 weeks and ended up doing a fight in front of 1,000 people. Not my natural state.
No, like knowing you, David, like from the last year or so.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
I lost my fight. I had my nose broken in my first 3 weeks of training, so I wasn't able to. My defensive skills weren't that great because no one was allowed to hit me in the face. But it was a great experience, and I dropped 10 kgs and was the fittest I'd been in 20 years. And that kind of helped highlight to me that my physical well-being was just as important as my mental well-being. So I think, kind of long answer to a question. There's been that kind of personal journey of personal growth, working on my own well-being, mental and physical, I think has been super important, but has also been a key part to how I turn up to work every day as a manager and as a leader of people.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And, I'm so happy, but obviously knowing you personally, David, getting to know you over the last couple of years, so happy not only for you, but for your wife and your girls and anyone that is that you lead. Like, that is such a beautiful environment that you are providing them to be safe and be heard and seen. And that it doesn't come around very often. Like, that's special. It's really special.
I mean, and there's probably, again, I kind of see these as simple things, but my perspective on things like sick leave have changed a lot. Often, if you see people taking sick leave on a fairly regular basis or taking a lot of sick leave, often if you're an inexperienced manager or someone who's got a lot of pressures and people are taking sick leave, you go, they're unwell, their sick leave's impacting on me. And so you focus on yourself and how it's impacting you. But one of the things I started to do is go, well, if someone is being sick on a regular basis or being unwell, maybe it's a symptom to something else. Maybe it's an opportunity for asking a few questions, and rather than tackling, you're taking too much sick leave, maybe it's going, hey, what else is going on? How can we help? And that change in perspective has certainly opened up some conversations where we've been able to help, some of our team members with things that we may have not have been aware of. So it's just being curious and just being really caring about the people. I think kind of leads to different outcomes.
I think that's quite a modern thing too, because like 20 years ago when we were, in corporate jobs, there was no way that any manager would ask about your personal life or what's going on for you, or is there something that we can support you and help you with. It was like a taboo thing to talk about and ask your team members, right? Oh no, that's invading their privacy, to actually ask them about, is there something happening at home that we can support you with, or something going on, and getting to know your team members. And I'm so glad, David, that you are bringing this into workplaces now, because it's something that I'm really passionate about with my team as well, is actually knowing them as a person and what's going on in their life so we can support them the best we can, because people are going through a lot.
Yep. Absolutely.
That you just don't know about.
And I think even through our recruitment journey, when people are turning up to present into roles, some staff are being quite drawn to how we work and how we operate, because we are really clear about how we want to be with our team. It means that we're attracting people that perhaps would struggle in other more corporate roles, maybe where they need some more flexibility because maybe they have a child that has an illness that needs, some greater support, and it doesn't affect the work they do, but they just need more flexibility, to be able to work around that. And so, we've very much worked on trying to allow for as much flexibility as possible within people's work profiles. So this year, still not sure if we've 100% nailed it yet, but our kind of hybrid work policy is, for a full-time team, we're trying to encourage folks to be in the office around 3 days a week. The decision about when you work from home and when you work in the office is based around 3 key things. So it's based on what's good for you, what's good for your team, and what's good for the organization. So if you're making a decision about where to work, it needs to cover all 3 of those things. So it's not just it's raining today, so I won't go to the office, because, I've actually got a team meeting and I need to turn up and I need to participate as part of a team. So, but within that hybrid space, we also have flexibility as well. So if people need to duck off and pick up the kids from kindy, or go to a school event, or, watch the kids play some sport, we allow for that. And it's by and large is working relatively well.
It's great, because we're seeing so many, especially the larger organizations, who obviously during lockdown and COVID and stuff, everyone was working from home. And they saw that it was working really well. And for another year or so afterwards, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. But now even these big, large organizations are slowly bringing people back into the office. And all of a sudden, these employees and contractors are like, well, hold on. Why? You were saying how good this is working while we were working at home, and now you're changing your mind and you want us back in.
Yeah, one of the things I was really conscious of, I didn't want to impose my will on the team and go, because I do try and question my own motivations on things as well. So if I was going, I want everybody back in the office, and it's like, well, why? What am I not getting from this? And so we actually ran a process where we surveyed all of our team and said, when it comes to where you work, where would you prefer to work? And we had almost a 50-50 split in terms of half saying, I prefer to work from home, and half saying, I prefer to work from the office. Some people join because we have an office and they want to come somewhere every single day. And then we have others that prefer from home. One of the interesting things was when we said, how often do you want to work from your preferred location? Nobody said 100% of the time. And the majority was around 2 to 3 days a week in their preferred location. So that's what we've settled on as a policy, is based on the general feedback from our team. So the policy is very much grown from a staff input perspective, not being something that's being designed and imposed on everybody.
Love that. This is all sounding very rainbows and unicorns. There will be some people listening to this episode that going, oh, well, that's all great, but how does all this doing good affect your bottom line? Because at the end of the day, you do have people to pay in order to keep going, right?
Absolutely. And I think when you start thinking about a bottom line, it's really, are you thinking about purely a financial bottom line, or are you thinking this idea of the triple bottom line? So you think about people, planet, and profit. So I think about the bottom line as all of those things. So how are we looking after our people? How are we looking after the planet? And how are we looking after our bottom line or our profit? So if you think purely in terms of profit, we're making decisions that would result in us not being as profitable. We are still a profitable company. We are doing well and making money and paying our staff and providing a great service to our customers. But we're making some conscious choices that do actually reduce the financial profit, but it means that our people are better paid, better looked after, we have greater retention, greater staff satisfaction. So that in itself is part of the bottom line, looking after the people that work for us and work with us. And I very much see that as an obligation of an employer, we're paying people to come and work for us. We want that to be the best experience possible. And we're enabling them to put food on their tables and pay mortgages. And that's a responsibility that we need to kind of carry. And then from a planet perspective, there's lots that we can do to reduce our impact as an organization on the planet. So I think we're into our 6th year now as a ECOS climate positive partner. So which means we cover 120% of our emissions through offsets, but we actively manage our emissions down. So we track all of our scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions on an annual basis. We track that. I report it to the board. We make conscious decisions about trying to minimize the amount we travel around the country, minimizing our flights. And we've also this year introduced some initiatives to encourage staff to consider low carbon, no carbon forms of transport. So we actually pay for public transport for our staff to go to and from work. So we have about a third of our organisation that we provide, snapper cards, and they commute to and from work, and we pay for that. So that's part of the benefit of working at Thankyou Payroll, but it's also part of our obligation to lowering the impact of petrol cars, trying to discourage folks to take a car to work so they get on a train or a bus. And then we've also, in recent months, just introduced interest-free e-bike loans. So we'll provide up to $3,000 for a single e-bike, or $5,000, I think it is, for a cargo bike, and over 2 years, and then that'll just get paid out through their payroll on a weekly basis. So we've had our first e-bike already purchased. One of our team members now cycles between 2 and 3 days a week to work on their e-bike. So that's part of our commitment to the bottom line. So that's the planet piece. And then the profitable side of things, you just need to make sure that your business model is set up in a way that, funds all of these things. But if you're looking to maximize profit in terms of pure money, we're making decisions that aren't maximizing that, but we're maximizing in other areas.
David, I've always said I would never go back to a traditional employee 9 to 5 type of gig. But if I was ever going to, I would be knocking on your door for sure. Like, it just sounds incredible. Like, I want to work for you.
Oh. Well,
I think Sandra said that she was going to ditch me for you, David.
Oh, I don't want to come in between you two.
Sorry, Joe.
But in all seriousness, no, I think it's, if you're an employer, running a small or even large, entity in New Zealand, I think there are lots of relatively, in my mind, simple things that you can do that can transform the employee experience at work and can showcase your values. So our values around doing good are embedded into some of the things that we provide to our staff through benefits. They're embedded in some of the things we do, around hard choices we make about not flying everywhere every other week. So it's all about choices, and choices aren't always easy. But if they're coming from a good place, then, people will resonate with it.
I mean, this has opened my mind to what doing good means. I honestly thought this conversation was going to be all about communities and charities and all great stuff. It hadn't even occurred to me that doing good can start closer to home.
Oh, absolutely.
And just like your business model and how you treat your team is attracting like great team members and your attention is really high, I'd imagine in terms of like your clients, so those that literally are wanting payroll software, as you said, there's so many to choose from, but there's going to be certain clients, customers that are going to pick you because of all the good that you're doing. Like, that's going to be really attractive to them. Your values are going to be in alignment with their own.
Absolutely. As much as I'd love every customer to come to us and use us because of our values and our ethos and how we operate, at the end of the day, our customers come to us because they've got a payroll problem to solve. First and foremost, we need to be a good payroll provider. And so that's our key focus, and kind of we're going through a big modernization piece of work at the moment. So once if you're a business looking for a payroll provider, and there's a range of solutions out there, and strongly recommend using New Zealand-based payroll providers, just given the complexity of New Zealand legislation. The New Zealand providers generally have a much better handle on getting that right. But once you've got a range of, payroll providers to choose from, how do you differentiate between those? And often it will come down to, does it allow me to do the type of payroll I need for the complexity of my business? If yes, tick. Does it provide great service? Do they have, knowledgeable staff? If yes, tick. And a lot of the payroll providers tick both of those boxes. So then what else, then starts helping to differentiate. And I think part of how we operate in our kind of social enterprise focus certainly helps distinguish us from some of the others out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that absolutely is part of the equation. Like, even with us Sam and I, when we chose our booking software for our awards this year. Yes, it's still this year. It wasn't that long ago, actually.
Yeah.
This year, we purposely chose Humanitics as our booking software because they have that charitable ethos as well. And so part of the ticket price was actually going to go to children's charities. So we could have chosen any of the others, and we've used others in the past, but we chose that one specifically this year because we wanted to increase the amount of doing good as our kind of theme this year for the awards. So absolutely does come into the equation. So having something that just makes you stand out and do good and people can align with those values is amazing. I love it.
One of the things I do have a kind of a perspective on, particularly around being climate positive, is whether I think we're still only the only payroll company that is climate positive in terms of how we operate. And to my mind, that's a shame. We shouldn't be using our approach to saving the planet as a differentiator in our service. It's something we should all be, striving to do something about. And so, it is a differentiator for us right now. I hope it's not in the near future. I really want everyone else to be doing what they can, to ensure that their business model is impacting the planet or minimizing its impact to the planet as much as possible.
All right. Is there anything that you feel like we have not covered off that you would like the listeners of the podcast, virtual assistant business owners, to know, David, or something that they can take away, a practical kind of tip that they could take away?
Yeah, I think when it comes to, if it's around managing people and managing staff and thinking about how you approach your staff in terms of a long-term perspective around building satisfaction and reducing retention, looking at how you pay people and the benefits that go with that, I think are super important. We're in a very fortunate position where we can afford to fund some benefits for our staff, and they've been really impactful for some of our team. So a couple of examples. About 2 years ago, we went through an exercise to benchmark all of our salaries in the business. So because we came from a social enterprise perspective in the early days and our products were free, I think we probably grew up with a bit of a not-for-profit kind of mindset. So this kind of scarcity mindset if we don't have a lot of money to do what we need to do. But when I came into business 2.5 years ago, actually we were a profitable business. We did have money, but we were paying people as if they were working for not-for-profits. And so that affected the type of people that we could attract into the business, the skill sets that we actually needed to do some of the modernizing work. So we went through a process and took every role and had independently checked against kind of industry norms. And we moved all of the salaries to the median of the bands that came back from that process. So we went through an independent process and then moved up, and some of those salaries moved a reasonable amount. What it meant was we're actually paying people fairly for the role that they were doing for the organization. That was step number one. Are we actually paying people what they're worth and what the role is worth? And then we wanted to do something, and this was all around the time when all the big tech companies were just hoovering up staff everywhere, left, right, and center. So we had to start thinking about what are some other ways that we can attract staff to stay with us without necessarily paying the massive salaries. So we've implemented over the last 2 years health insurance. So we pay fully subsidized health insurance for our team. We've extended, annual leave was already sitting at 5 weeks a year. We introduced kind of discretionary COVID leave. So if anybody got COVID, we would pay for sick leave over and above their 10 days so that the normal 10-day balance would be impacted. We've since rolled that into an ongoing 20 days of high water or sick leave for all staff. So anybody can take up to 20 days sick leave. But that comes back to my previous point about if people are taking lots of sick leave, it's possibly a symptom of something else and an opportunity for a conversation to explore why. What else have we done? But our e-bike loans, we've got public transport, fully subsidized. And we also provide about $400 a year for covering wellbeing activities. So if you want to pay for a gym membership or get a manicure or, get a haircut, whatever it might be, or a massage. I use them for massages once a quarter. Then, so there's a range of really cool little benefits that collectively add up to quite a lot for our staff, not just in the monetary terms, but also in the benefits they provide. And I know the health insurance has been incredibly impactful for a couple of our team members over the last year.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Sam, any final thoughts from you?
I've got a question, because we see a lot of virtual assistants, especially like the freelancers. So they want to give back in some way. It's just them. They're on their own. And so they might be volunteering their time, for instance. Have you got any advice around like being intentional with who you're supporting and how you can, like, do you have to put boundaries around how you support them as well? So once again, if you're just by yourself, you want to support, but you don't want to be giving away everything all the time, do you? Like there's that balance that the freelance amongst us kind of really need to be aware of.
Very much so. And my wife is one of you. So she runs her own bookkeeping work from home and serves the needs of multiple businesses. She does voluntary work for a charity, but it's, like you say, it's really intentional. It's a charity that resonates with her personally.
Yeah.
But she also because you have to in the nature of your work, you need to be able to compartmentalize, across your various customers. So you need to be really clear around setting expectations with a charity. So if you're going to provide some voluntary services to an organization, and it's been done in a really intentional way, you need to be really clear with your expectations about what services you can provide within what boundaries, so that you're not being called 24/7, or that half a day a week is turned into 3 days a week of support. So, but I think the more you have those upfront conversations, sooner, and set those expectations, then the much better you can provide, really meaningful support to a charity or some other voluntary organization.
And would you encourage those like your wife that are in that position to like share, like in their own messaging and their own comms and their social media, that they are supporting this organization in this way?
Well, absolutely. Because I think ultimately charities really struggle with awareness. There's, thousands and thousands of charities that all survive on smell of an oily rag and all of struggle with awareness. And so if you're providing some support to an organization, some of the benefit of what you can provide to that organization is also amplifying what they do through your own networks, through your own social channels. So it's not just about, look at me, aren't I doing good by being volunteering? It's like, hey, I volunteer in this organization because I really believe in the kaupapa and the work that they're doing, and I want to do what I can to support them. And perhaps you might too. So there's opportunity for you to help amplify their message and what they're doing.
So flip the script, right? Don't think of it, oh, look at me, I'm bragging, I'm so good, like put a little halo on top of my head. It's like, I'm actually doing good by bringing more exposure to this organization. Yeah.
I mean, we're all the kind of the heroes in our own journeys, but at the end of the day, I think it's, if you want to look at it doing good, we need to look at the heroes in other places and how we can support them. So it's, very much we've got so many amazing organizations out there that are doing it hard, trying to bring about change in a space where it's not a lot of funding to do so. And I think there's a lot that all of us can do to support those organizations.
I mean, there are so many. So David, how does Thankyou Payroll, in terms of like your own volunteer days and the communities and charities that you support, how do you pick? Like, do you have some type of process?
Been evolving, to be honest. So we went through a process last year where we gave, like I mentioned before, $500 to every staff member. So you got to pick your own charity that you could give money to. So that was a nice, easy one. People could choose themselves. When Cyclone Gabrielle came through last year, I felt compelled to support in a way. So I actually went to our board and asked for some out of budget funds to support. So we put, I think, about $20,000 of cash to iwi that were asking for money on the ground So we provided some funds to local iwi in 2 different areas. So, making a decision like that's a no-brainer. That's like a out of the norm, extraordinary event. We do have the kind of voluntary days. And so one of the things we're starting to do is think about how we can align those to other work that we're doing. So we're very much in the early stages of the Te Ao Māori kind of journey as an organisation. How do we become better allies to our tangata whenua? And so one of the things we're thinking about doing more of is, if we're doing voluntary days, then how can we align those to sort of the local mana whenua? So one of the things I'm looking to tackle next year is building up local relationships with Māori in our 2 areas where we have offices, and then seeing whether we can actually align the voluntary work and some of the other efforts that and the funds that we're putting to charities, etc., maybe supporting local events around there as well. So there's kind of a natural progression of decision making. It's not really who should we choose to fund, this week or this month.
Yeah.
I think something that's become really apparent, David, is just how this is how you think.
Yeah.
And this is not something that you are trying to come up with ways. This is who you are. And it's amazing that you have you as the leader in Thankyou Payroll. It's amazing for Thankyou Payroll that that they have such an amazing leader. This is just part of who you are and the way that you think and the ethos that you have. So I think it's amazing and so grateful to have people like you in the world doing good. And we hope that this episode has inspired those who are listening to figure out ways that they can make this part of their ethos and their values in their organization, whether they're a freelancer or an agency owner. So thank you so much.
Always happy to chat to folks. So if anyone ever has a question or wants to talk some more about how they could go about doing something, then reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm always catching up with folks, and I'm learning as much as anyone else, and there's always more that I can do. I love these different conversations that people have with me, because I learn something as well through those.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sam and Joe VA Show. If you'd like to find out more, head to the VA Foundry website to check out the mastermind and the amazing resources, courses, and coaching.
You can find us at thevafoundry.com.